I'll give you a hint. It's not Santa Claus. Does this gentleman look familiar to anybody?
Yes.
You know who it is? No. Alexander Graham Bell?
Wait, I know who it is.
Who?
Thomas Edison.
No? That's a light bulb. Who?
It's the guy with the apple farm.
No, that's Newton.
I know.
This is Charles Darwin.
Oh, I
Do
thought
you
it was
have-
Alvin.
So, do you have any idea what scientific concept Darwin is known for? Not quite. Or
Organisms?
what? No. Evolution and natural selection. All right. So you have some vocabulary in the next slide. We're not going to go over it, but it's there for your reference later on. We're going to skip that. All right. So you guys named some of the characteristics of living things. Okay. So all living things have these 7 characteristics in common. Okay? First of all, like someone said, all living things are made of cells. We're going to just list them for now, and then we'll talk about each one sort of in more detail in the next sections. So all living things are made of cells. All living things use energy. All living things grow and develop over time. Yeah. Can you think of something that doesn't grow or develop? It's not alive.
Well, what happens if it's like done growing?
Well, it grew in its life.
Starfish grow.
All right. It maintains homeostasis.
What?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Don't worry. But it's an important word, homeostasis, that you'll have to know, and you'll come back to that word anytime you're taking any sort of life science. Homeostasis is a key concept. All living things have a universal genetic code. All living things reproduce or have the capability of reproduction. And finally, all living things are adapted to their environment. So those are what we will call our 7 characteristics of life. And we'll talk about each one in a little more detail and actually explain them rather than just list them. All right, cells. So someone said cells earlier. Have you guys studied cells in past grades?
No.
Okay. Never had to like make a model of a cell or color?
No.
Okay. So what is a cell? Like if I asked you to explain, like what is a cell? Dan?
It's like the makeup of people, of living things.
Okay. What else, dude?
Kind of like a very small building block.
Okay, good. Building blocks. That's what we often will say is that cells are the building blocks of life, the basic unit of life. They're generally small and microscopic. What are the smallest of living things? What's the smallest living thing you can think of? An ant. People always, that's always the first go-to one, yeah. Anything smaller? Plankton, okay.
Bacteria.
Bacteria. Bacteria are some of the very smallest organisms. How many cells make up a bacterium? One. They're single-celled organisms. Really, really tiny. But they're still alive. Okay. They exhibit all the characteristics we just listed. The smallest living things are only single-celled. But some organisms are made of trillions of cells. So, trees, us, we are made of trillions of cells. But all living things are made of cells. So you said they're the building blocks. And with these basic building blocks, like with a Lego set, for example, you could build all sorts of different things, different shapes, different objects, just with one basic building block that comes in some different varieties, okay? But they're all can create lots of different varieties.
As we grow, do we get more cells?
Yep, you grow in number of cells. Yep, sometimes you grow in size of cells as well. Mostly in number of cells. All right, so all living things are made. These are cells. You're going to be looking, we're actually, our next unit is all about cells, and we're going to do quite a bit of detail about cells. You'll see cells, look at them in the microscope, things like that. But these are cells. These are cells from an onion.
That's weird.
Okay. We'll look at other types of cells. Okay, all living things use energy. So without energy, cells die. The parts within a cell need a constant source of energy to maintain the cell, to move things around. So that energy is really important.
So for plants, kind of like the sun, is there source of energy?
Yes, so we have two categories of organisms in terms of how they get their energy. Some organisms are called autotrophs, some are called heterotrophs. Have you heard those terms?
No.
Okay. Have you heard the terms producer and consumer?
Yes.
Same meaning. Autotrophs are producers. So what does that mean? Jeremy?
They make their own energy.
I'm just going to adjust your wording a bit. Because they don't make their own energy, per se, Henry.
They make more cells?
No? Yeah, so they make molecules which they use as food. They do that using the sun's energy. So what are producers or autotrophs? What do you generally think of? Plants, but there's some other things as well. Plants don't need to eat anything. They make their own molecules they use for food. Using what process? What do we call that? Photosynthesis. We are not autotrophs. We can't just go and lay in the sun and then not need to eat that day. If we were, that's what would happen. If we were autotrophs, we just need to go into the sun and you never would need to eat. But that's not the way our energy system works. We are what we call heterotrophs. So how do heterotrophs get energy? Drew?
From the food they eat or any other thing that they can get from
Yeah, from eating other organisms. Heterotrophs eat other organisms in order to obtain energy. So right now I'm eating another organism.
Oh my god.
No.
What if you had a family?
So as I consume this organism, this apple, my digestive system will break down the molecules into very tiny little molecules that my cells can actually use for energy. This is how animals, how bacteria, most bacteria, how fungi obtain energy. They are heterotrophs. I'm sorry. Emily?
Wouldn't that be considered cannibalism? If you're eating another organism that you are an organism?
No, what is cannibalism?
When you eat your own
Species.
Species.
So like if a pig was to eat bacon,
Pig eating bacon, that
so
would
if
be.
a duck ate poultry pie.
Well, it depends what's in poultry pie.
Poultry duck pie.
Oh.
I've never even heard of poultry pie.
Yeah,
It's
what's
a
Are cells like very different from each other?
Yes, cells come in all sorts of shapes, sizes. They have different parts. They complete different functions. So yes, cells are not like one thing that is always the same. There's a lot of variety to types of cells. Dylan?
Do I have like different cells from like Richard?
In each of your cells, so you have the same types of cells. You have skin cells, you have neurons, nerve cells, and blood cells. The difference between your cells and Richard's cells are in the DNA that they contain. So yes, in a way.
And the size?
Somewhat. All right, we have questions? Mateo?
Would your cells come from what your parents' cells are?
So yeah, sort of. Your cells in a human, a normal human, has 46 chromosomes in every single cell, 23 of which were inherited from their mother, 23 of which were inherited from their father. Hunter?
Wouldn't melanin also contribute too? Or
What's up?
Wouldn't melanin contribute also, or would it not?
Would what contribute?
Melanin.
Contribute to what?
DNA.
No, no, DNA is in control of the production of melanin. All right. Growth. So growth is an increase in the size of an organism over time. So here we have a seed germinating and growing. It grows by adding on new cells, by cells reproducing and increasing the size of the organism. So obviously you guys are growing at this time. There's also this concept of development, in which not only does the organism increase in size, but changes in form over time. Okay, such as a tadpole metamorphizing into a frog. Okay, that's an example of development, a change over time.
What's the thing in the middle?
That's the tadpole that's starting to grow back legs as it metamorphizes into a frog. This is like a froglet. Hasn't reabsorbed the tail yet.
Why is there a tail?
Because eventually the tail gets reabsorbed into the frog as it, and this is in the end of this metamorphosis.
Do cells have cells inside them?
No, they have organelles inside them, which we'll talk about. All right. So where do you all look a little puzzled about? Homeostasis. So homeostasis is this concept of keeping conditions balanced. For example, in our bodies, we have certain conditions that are necessary in order for us to stay healthy, to stay alive. We have certain body temperature that must be maintained. If our body temperature increases too much beyond that, or decreases too much below that, then we can't survive. We have certain blood oxygen levels that must be maintained, certain pH values that must be maintained, certain glucose levels, and so forth. So our body needs certain conditions to stay healthy. We call that homeostasis, maintaining that. And obviously we have lots of mechanisms built into how our bodies work to keep those conditions at the right level. That's our body maintaining homeostasis. Okay? Keeping the proper level of these various. And body temperature is a good example, and we'll talk about this in a second. So homeostasis works through a complex mechanism of stimulus and response. A stimulus is basically changes in the internal or external environment. And a response is how the body reacts to that change. So here's some examples of stimuli and response. Now, these are mostly internal stimuli. When we talk about the nervous system, we'll talk about external stimuli. An external stimulus, information coming in from the outside world, and our body can make adjustments to that. When we're talking about homeostasis, we're generally talking about changes within our body and how our body responds. So let's look at some examples, and they're a little different. The notes have changed a bit from what you have. So when your body temperature drops, okay, you went in the fall up to your camp, you swam in the lake when it was cold out, got out of the lake and it was windy, and so you stayed out and your body temperature started to drop. It was cold out. That's a stimulus, right? That's a change. Your body's internal temperature is dropped below what's normal. What would normal be on average, David?
98.6.
98.6 or so, it varies a little between people. If your body temperature starts dropping below that, your body responds trying to maintain homeostasis, trying to maintain the proper body temperature. What does your body do? Dan?
Shivers.
Shivers. When your body shivers, your muscles are contracting and relaxing very quickly. That causes you to shake. What that actually does is it generates extra heat internally in your body, which can hopefully raise your body temperature up to the proper level. Okay?
What happens when heat, like,
Shattering teeth, it's the same thing. That's shivering. It's just the muscles in your jaw contracting and your teeth are. So that's one way that our body adjusts. Okay? And you can think about this the same sort of, if let's say it's only October, your parents refuse to turn on the heat. So your bedroom's really cold. Okay? And you're freezing at night. In your sleeping, what position do you take naturally? Like you're in like a little ball. Why are you like that? Well, you're trying to keep all of your body heat nice and close, and by getting yourself in the fetal position, you're maintaining that body heat. Think about then your parents don't want to turn on the air conditioning in the summer, and your room is super hot, and you're sweating in bed trying to sleep. What position do you take then? It's like, right? What are you doing? You're trying to allow as much heat to radiate out of your body as possible. You do that by maximizing your surface area, and that's why you sleep like that. Okay? How about internally? When your body temperature rises, okay, it's hot out. Your coach made you run all the lines on the turf field to the 10 and then to the 20 and back and the 30 and so forth, and you're working really hard, your body temperature is starting to rise. Emily, what happens? You start sweating. Sweat, when it evaporates from your skin, it releases heat. It removes heat from your body. Okay, this morning you ate a giant bowl of Fruity Pebbles, ate a Pop-Tart, okay? Right now, as you've been digesting that breakfast, what's happening to your blood glucose levels?
going up.
They're starting to rise. You're digesting that. Glucose is getting into your blood. Too much glucose in your blood is not good. It can cause damage to nerves. It can cause damage to your eyes. Okay, damage to your kidneys. So your body needs the proper level of blood glucose. So make some adjustments. When you eat a lot of sugary foods, does anyone know how your body responds to maintain homeostasis? Talia?
Kind of go a bit crazy.
Well, you may, but this is something else.
Kind of become more active.
Maybe, but there's something else. I think you're probably familiar with it if you, well, I don't know if I want to say it yet. Henry?
Our energy goes up.
Yeah, not related to energy or getting hype or anything like that. Something else.
Go to the bathroom.
No?
Sugar rush.
No? Do you know anybody that, Dan, what?
Who's diabetes?
Okay, so let's think about that. You probably know somebody that
Oh,
has
insulin.
diabetes. What?
Insulin.
So yes, your body's response to elevated blood sugar levels is your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin is a hormone. When insulin gets into your blood, it signals your cells and it says basically, hey, there's too much sugar in the blood. We need to take some out and store it away. A person that's diabetic, their body doesn't control that on its own. They need help controlling the blood sugar, right? Because their pancreas is not producing insulin. When you get a virus in your body that can disrupt homeostasis, your body responds by increasing your body temperature, trying to fight off and kill that virus. When you're going out, you're going to run the mile in gym class today. And you're not one of those people who are going to slack off and just jog a mile. You want your very best time you possibly can get. So you go out there and you're sprinting as fast as you can to run your mile. Your cells, you're working so hard, your muscles are using up lots of oxygen. So the oxygen level in your blood is dropping. How does your body respond, Dylan?
You breathe heavy.
You breathe heavy, you breathe faster, okay? You're gasping for breath. That's because your body's trying to maintain homeostasis and keep the proper level of oxygen in your blood. So this is homeostasis, maintaining this balance, proper conditions. What is that picture of?
Genetic codes.
DNA.
That's DNA. How do you recognize it?
It's got a helix pattern.
Yeah, it's shape, right? It's that spiral staircase sort of shape, that twisted ladder. It's called the double helix. All living organisms have DNA. DNA is a molecule. It's a chemical. It's found in all of our cells. And DNA is a code. And it's the code that tells our bodies how to work, that builds us, that specifies just about everything about us, is controlled by our DNA. DNA is what it's passed on from one generation to another. Like I just said earlier, you inherited half of your DNA from your mother and half from your father. So,
How come some people look more like their
just
dad?
about which DNA you happen to inherit, but even let's say you look just like your mother or your father, doesn't mean you have any more DNA from them. You just look half. It's just the half you happen to inherit from your mother, for example. Might be some of the chromosomes, some of the traits that are in control of sort of your outward appearance. DNA is basically like an alphabet, a very simple 4-letter alphabet with only 4 separate letters, A, T, G, and Z. And the order that those letters come in is what makes you different from somebody else. The order of T, A, G, and C in your cells is slightly different from the order of those letters in somebody else. And those differences are what make us different from each other. Reproduction. So obviously, if a species is incapable of reproduction, what does that mean?
It's not a species.
It will be extinct at some point, right? Reproduction must happen in order for a species to continue. So reproduction is just a creation of new organisms to sustain the species. And so reproduction is then a characteristic of living things. Now, an individual does not need to reproduce. It's still alive, even if it hasn't or won't reproduce. But living species as a whole must have this capability of reproduction. When we talk about reproduction, we sort of split it into 2 categories: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction is when there are 2 parent organisms involved and they combine DNA to form the offspring. And those offspring, how do they compare to the parent organism?
They have half of each parent's DNA.
Yes, they are a mix of traits from both parents. They're not identical to either one. Sexual reproduction results in variation, in differences, because we're combining genetic material from 2 different parents. Organisms that reproduce sexually, animals obviously, but also other things. Plants reproduce sexually.
How?
Good question. Now you're like pondering this now. Well, you are, some of you may be allergic to plant reproductive cells. So in animals, for example, we have in sexual reproduction, we have a sperm cell from the male, fertilized an egg cell from the female, that grows into an offspring. So you have DNA in the sperm cell, DNA in the egg cell. Okay, well, what about plants?
It's like when you see the stuff flying in the air.
Yeah, what do you call it? What it really is plant sperm. Pollen grains are the male reproductive cells of male flowers. Blows around through the air. Eventually it lands on other reproductive structures, female reproductive structures in other flowers, and fertilizes eggs. The eggs grow into little embryo, which in plants, what do we call it?
Seeds.
A seed, which grows into a living organism. That's sexual reproduction. You have half of the chromosomes are in the pollen grain, half are in the egg cell. They combine and they grow into an offspring. It's just like sexual reproduction in animals. Mateo.
What if like, say there's two plants and they make one, and then the two plants make one. What if they combine? Would it be 25, 25, 25, 25?
Nope. Nope. It's always because you have half. So obviously it has to be within the same species. A maple tree, a sugar maple tree can't fertilize the eggs. The pollen grains can't fertilize eggs from a red oak tree. Just like a sperm cell from a cat can't fertilize an egg cell from a dog. It's within one species. Yes. Well, we have lots of questions here. Also, so just a side note, if, let's say your mom's birthday is coming up and you buy her a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Is anyone's birthday's coming up? Okay, then buy a bouquet of flowers. What are you actually presenting your mother with? Not just pollen. What are flowers?
Living organisms?
They're the reproductive organs of plants. That's what flowers are. They're the reproductive organs. So you're giving them a bundle of maybe male, maybe female, maybe both reproductive organs on your birthday. So just so you know what's happening.
I just thought it was
All right, questions. We have a whole unit about plants. Hold on. We will talk more about plant reproduction because obviously there's a lot of curiosity about this. But I'll answer a couple questions quickly. Emily.
So plants have genders?
Yeah, so it depends. So there are some plants, again, we will cover this in our plant unit. On some plants, so obviously flowers, some flowers contain both male reproductive structures and female reproductive structures in one flower. Other plants will have flowers. Some flowers are only male reproductive structures, some flowers only female. Some plants, a whole tree, for example, has only all male flowers, and another tree has only all female flowers. But there's all those different combinations, so sort of. Dan?
So when my second grade teacher put her thumb into one flower and put it into the other flower, it helped the two flowers make
Yeah, she was.
other flowers.
Yeah, she was taking pollen grains from one and putting them on the ovules of another. Yeah, she was facilitating. You may say she was artificially inseminating that other plant. Yes. Richard.
You know when you eat a baby chicken egg, you eat a baby chicken egg?
Wait, an unfertilized?
No, like a chicken egg that you buy from the store.
Those are
Chicken eggs from the store, not fertilized, so no.
Like just eggs like
But you could buy a balut, which is a fertilized chicken or duck egg, which has the embryo in there, and people eat that.
Well, would that like actually turn into a baby?
It would have, not the one from the grocery store. All right, Dylan, quickly.
How do you figure out the gender of a plant?
You have to look at the structures. You'll know how to do this when we get to the plant unit. You can see there's stamens and pistils, male reproductive structures, female reproductive structures.
So since trees have genders, they can't be the same gender. Like,
They can.
Oh, they can.
They can have multiple flowers of different, gender is more of like a social structure, but of male and female reproductive
So
structures.
trees can both have, we can have both male and female?
Yes, depending on the species. Some species, they're mixed on one plant, some they're not. All right, Mateo, last question.
Plants have more than one gender.
You just said.
That's the same question, yes. Yes, they can have multiple types of reproductive structure on one plant. All right, anyway.
I thought this was science class.
Asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is reproduction in which you have only one parent organism, which basically just makes a copy of itself. But what do you think the offspring are like?
The same thing.
They're the same. It's like a clone of the original. The offspring are identical. So asexual reproduction or reproducing organisms include bacteria, can reproduce asexually, many single-celled organisms, sometimes more complex organisms. Plants can reproduce asexually as well. They can reproduce in both ways. A few animals can reproduce asexually as well. But the offspring are identical. So sexual reproduction, two parents and a puppy. Asexual reproduction, an amoeba, basically copying its DNA, splitting into two. Here are the two offspring, so it's reproduced, but these are just copies of the original. Talia?
What happens when you get an apple and you take apple seeds and then plant them? What would that do?
Nothing. Because the seed in this apple is not, so this is, what is the seed?
An apple seed.
It's an embryo of an apple plant. So the fertilization has already taken place. Because what did this apple start as?
A
Seed.
No.
A
tree.
On the tree, what was it? It started as a flower. Right? That's what these parts are. These are the leaves of that flower. This is the stem. That's where it was attached to the tree. This was a flower. At one point, a pollen grain, a male reproductive cell, landed on the pistil, the female reproductive organs of this flower. Once that happens, the pollen grain grows, fertilizes the egg cells, which become seeds, and then the ovary of the flower ripens into the fruit. I am right now eating the ripened ovary of this plant flower.
So you're eating a tree. You're eating a
No,
child.
I'm not eating the children, it's just the ovary. The children are the seeds, I will not be eating the seeds. Alright, listen, we were supposed to be going fast through this. Wait, can we finish? Yeah, 7. We got this.
We have a minute.
We got this. All living things, through evolution, have adapted over time. I guess we'll have to, I need to say more about this. So I guess we'll leave off here. We'll continue tomorrow. Hopefully have less questions about plant reproduction.
No, probably have more.
Well,
Henry?
So that's how there are two types of apples.
No, think about it.
Yeah, they come from different varieties of trees.